Good evening. This is BelGeode, and we are back with some more X-Plane 10.45. Alright, so I'm sure you're familiar with the Vertavia SH3 Sea King, and you're probably familiar with our location. We are at Finleyville Airpark, where I landed this thing yesterday. And today, what we're going to do is a little bit special, even though it's kind of overcast here. I hope I don't get rained on. We are going to build up this airport. So I'm going to try and go through the process here and show you how to use the WED or the World Editor. And we're going to keep popping back here and see our progress as we go along. Hopefully I won't have to demolish those houses, because I was looking online at like Google Maps and the USGS database. That's the US Geological Survey database. And they do actually have houses down there. So I'm hoping that I can place this airport in a position where I can keep those houses and then of course put all the real stuff that's at this airport. One thing I can tell you straight off the bat, this taxiway here that I parked on yesterday, that's not really there in real life. So yeah, that's going to be one of the first things that we get rid of. This is one of those airports where you've got a taxi down the runway, and when you reach the end, there's a little bit of a turnaround over by the threshold on both ends. So again, you will be watching me go through all of that, and I'm going to share the process with you. Alright, I need some reference pictures, or I guess that would be a before shot. So, let's put on our Superman boots here, and we'll see if we can go up, up, and away. I'm sure the helo will be quite fine down there. Alright, yes, according to my reference, there is in fact a road to the south of this airport. There are roads to the north of the airport, but they're not as close as X-Plane 10 would like you to believe. So yeah, that's definitely not a thing there. Alright, let's see. Yep, there's a forest there. That beacon's going to need to be moved. I was looking to see if I could find where the real beacon is placed. It almost looks like it might be on top of a building. If not, I'll have to put it like over here or something like that. But it definitely does not belong where it is right now. And there's an area here where there's a field and some rocks. Like, well, actually, I think it's more like right here. So I'll have to etch out that area so that way it's empty. But that is definitely not where the forest is. There is a forest behind there, but yeah, not quite exactly there. Alright, let's see if I can go up a little bit higher. I don't know why it's going so slow. Actually, wait, why don't I do this? Can't I just look up and move forward? That might work. Of course, that might take forever for you guys. Alright, let's see. How high up did I get? Oh, a little bit higher. Look at our beautiful helicopter down there. Yeah, it looks like the runway. Well, first thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to make sure that the runway is in its exact spot. So I'll have to check the latitude and longitude of the runway, because it does look like it is kind of close to that road. So might need to slide it over a little bit to the left here. And in addition to that, I am also going to need to make sure that it's facing the right direction, because if it is the wrong degrees, it won't be totally accurate. We know that it's 32 on this end, and I believe it's 14 on the other end. So we'll have to see if that all matches up. But yeah, this taxiway's got to go. Alright, so let me take a couple of screenshots here. I want one facing that way. I want one facing the other way. I want one facing this way. Let's see, there's no other way to zoom this out, is there? Let me try backing up and seeing if that helps. Feel like I'm floating away. I'm like a balloon up in here. I'm floating away. Alright, yeah, I kind of want to get the runway for reference so I have an idea as to how far I need to make this thing go. Okay, right there should be good. We'll take a quick screenie there. I know this part is kind of boring for you guys, but I promise it will get better in a moment. Okay, so right there I think we're good. So I am going to cut to the WED, and I'm going to show you what that interface looks like. So stay tuned. Okay, so we are inside the WED, or the World Editor. This is what the main interface looks like. And as you can see, I've got a little strip of runway here and a couple of windsocks. I've already taken the liberty of taking away the taxiway, so that's out of the way here. Now, when you open this thing up, you're probably going to want to do a couple of things. First off, you're going to want to start like a new file. So you can download from the Airport Scenery Gateway, and you'll see it'll pop this open here. It's going to go through its little progress thing. Okay, so it gives you like a whole list of airports, and you can just simply type in the name of the airport, which we're looking for, G05. And that it is, Finleyville Airpark. Okay, so we click on that, and then it's going to tell us next. Now, when we select next, it will load it in here. I already have it loaded in here, so I'm not going to do that. All right, we'll go back to the main window. Okay, so we're back in the main window here. Now, the next thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pick an overlay image. And what I've done is I went to the USGS website. Again, that's the United States Geological Survey site. And I was able to download a tile, an aerial view, or a satellite view, if you will, of the Finleyville area. So this is it right here. By default, it puts it in world. It saves it as a JPEG, so obviously it's going to lose some quality. But I have on a second monitor Google Maps version where I can really zoom in and see what the buildings look like. So let me go ahead and turn this on. This is for visibility. There we go. So this is the area that we are working in. This is Finleyville. You see the little area that I was talking about. There is that forest there, and then there is also this little part that juts out. That's a rock. I don't think that's anything else. I was originally going to put the beacon over there, but it doesn't look like that is what I thought it was. So it's just a bunch of rocks. We'll leave it as it is. All right. Now, what I've done ahead of time is I've taken the liberty to line up the runway. You're going to want to use sites like AirNav or SkyVector or FlightAware or any of those kinds of sites where you can get information on the various airports, because you're going to want to make sure that your runway is accurate. Most notably that it's facing the right direction. It'll also give you information as to what type of lights the runway has, or what kind of markings. Is it a precision? Is it non-precision? So on and so forth. So we're going to go ahead and click on 1432. So you see it highlights the runway. And I'm going to go through the little information here real quick. First thing I can tell you, the runway length is 2,504 feet and about 6 inches. You can set this to either be in meters or in feet. I prefer to have it in feet. It's a little easier for me to calculate. The runway direction is approximately 130 degrees, 0.40. So we've got that lined up on our picture. And the picture is naturally facing north to south. So yeah, this is exactly where it needs to be placed. We have the longitude and the latitude of the runway. Basically, that'll tell you where the endpoints are. You'll notice it says latitude, longitude 1 and latitude, longitude 2. That is essentially telling the program this is where the runway starts, this is where the runway ends, and then a center should be right here, which should also line up to where your airport is, because usually whenever they tell you an airport is at such and such latitude, such and such longitude, they're talking about the center of the airport or the center of the runway. Alright, so we have that. It's classed as a runway. It is not locked. However, since I have it exactly where I want it to be, I am going to lock it. This will ensure that I don't accidentally move the runway out of the way. And it is not hidden. We do want it to be visible. If you make this hidden and then you save this file and import it into X-Plane, you won't be able to see your runway, which might come in handy if you're doing like grass strips and stuff like that, but I'll show you other things that we can use with that in a second. Width of the runway is fixed at 50 feet across. I got that set up there. And then the surface of the runway is asphalt. We have many choices here. If I wanted to, I can make this a grass runway. So there we go. It is now a grass runway. Or I could make it a dry lake bed, as you'll often find out west, like over by Edwards Air Force Base. But instead, I would like to have it as asphalt, because the real runway is asphalt, and this will also show off Flying Jackal's textures. Alright, runway shoulder, that's a little overrun area that you sometimes see on larger runways. This does not have one, so we're not going to put one there. Roughness, this is the default setting, is 0.25. That's relatively smooth as far as runways go. If I were to make that number higher, I could make this runway so rough that if you try to land, you might bust a strut. We don't want to do that. There are no centerline lights on this runway, so you see it has an X. There are edge lights. According to AirNav, it's LIRL, which stands for Low Intensity Runway Lights. So along the sides, you can see in my little picture here, there are lights spread out there. Now, they're probably not going to look like that when X-Plane generates them on the runway, but they will be low intensity lights, so it will be the proper lights for it. There's no displaced threshold. Excuse me, I can't speak anymore. You know what a displaced threshold is. That's where you see the little arrows coming in before you actually see the end of the runway. There's none of that here. This runway is just too small for that sort of thing. And the markings are visual markings. It is not precision, or it's not even non-precision. It's just a bunch of dashed lines going down the runway with a couple numbers on either end. There are no touchdown zone lights. There's no other lights. Runway end lights, nope, they don't exist. And actually, now that I'm thinking about that, this almost looks like a light. It's hard to tell because it's pixelated. Let me go over to the other side here. I'm using the right mouse button. I'm holding it down and moving it. Alright, it looks like there might be some runway end lights there after all. Let's go ahead and pull that open again. Alright, runway end lights 1, omnidirectional or unidirectional. Okay, so you do have options there. You know what? I think I am going to put some unidirectional lights. So we have REIL1, it's unidirectional. REIL2 will make that unidirectional as well. So when you're approaching from this way to runway 32, you will see some lights marking the end of the runway, since it appears that in the picture they do have it. And then the same thing on runway 14. So there we go. All right. Everything else we can pretty much leave as it is, so that should be fine. All right. Now let's take a closer look at the actual service area for this airport. Now, the way that this airport is set up, it's a really small community-owned airport. It is technically a corporation, but the pilots and mechanics and stuff are like shareholders as well. So the community essentially owns this airport. Now, you'll see they have hangars. Not all of these hangars will have little taxiways leading to them. Some of them just have grass in front, but there's several paths here and along there and so on and so forth. There is a taxiway that leads out here from this back area, and then everything from the front is going to go from this center area. So we're going to need to make a little center taxiway here with a hold short line. I'm not sure if it's got lights. I'll have to check online to see if there's pictures for it. I know there's no lights on this one. This is just pretty much a driveway, so we're going to have to put that in there. And then I'm going to have to come up with various hangars that I want to use for that. This will be a mix and match essentially. It's not going to be uniform like I did with Ross Traver. It's going to be whatever will fit there and whatever looks good there. You can see the road that I was talking about when we were in X-Plane. That road does in fact go behind there, and as you can see, there are houses on the other side. So I'm hoping that when I get this all set up, we will be able to preserve that. And there is also another house here, which I can only assume is for the manager of the airport or something like that. But yeah, there is definitely a house here, and it looks like it's tied together with everything else. These are the little turnarounds that we were talking about, so I'll be building those as taxiway items, and we'll get to that in a second here. The windsocks, one thing I did notice in one of my reference photos here, there's really only one windsock, so one of these two guys has got to go. And I'm going to pick you, so I'm going to select you with the left mouse button, and then I'm going to go delete. See ya, you are out of here. So now the other windsock we're going to move over here because even though everything's pixelated, there is a building right here where this windsock is on top of. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to be able to pull that off just yet, but if I can, I will have this windsock on the top of that building. We'll see how that'll work in a moment. Alright, let me get to work here and I'll check in with you in a few moments and tell you how I did what I did. Okay, so we are back. Now, I want to call your attention to the map itself. What I've done here, I realized that the stuff that I had before was a little too pixelated, which you can see back behind here. So I went to Google Maps and I literally took a screenshot as close in as I could get of the area. I took one of the airport itself, so I had a better view of the runway, and turns out I had to change my heading because apparently this USGS picture back here is off a little bit. But the Google Maps one appears to be correct, and now my runway is properly lined up for 14 and 32. And then I went ahead and zoomed all the way in, and I got shots of the hangars over here, as well as the hangars and the main airport buildings over here. So if we zoom all the way in, you'll see that I have not lost that much in the way of pixels. So it'll be easier for me to actually plop down some hangars. Now these buildings here might be a little bit tricky because I don't know if I have any T-shaped hangars here. So that could get interesting. I might have to take a little bit of creative license with that one. But now that we can see things a heck of a lot better, I can actually start mapping out the taxiways, putting the hold short line down, getting all these little roads in here, and building up to putting the hangars down. So let's see. The first thing we're going to want to start with here is this little end thing right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it over to the Taxiway tool, which I believe is this one right here. And the way that this works, it's basically like a drag and drop kind of thing. So you start where you want to have the taxiway begin, which I'm going to click right here. And we're just going to add the points. So I want one point right here. It doesn't have to be precise just yet. We can fix the vertices afterwards. So right here. And you'll notice it already starts to make a box shape to it. Right there. And then to close the shape, we're going to want to touch back in this little circle here. So bam. All of a sudden, we've got a taxiway. Now, by default, it's put it down as concrete. We don't want that because we know this runway is asphalt. So we're going to go over to the side box here. And I notice my mouse is not actually pulling up in the side boxes. So you'll have to bear with me here. But we're going to change that from concrete to asphalt, which you should have already seen that change happen. And you can change the texture heading so that it better matches up with your runway. In order to do that, we're going to need to figure out what our runway heading is. So let me click on the runway here. Okay, the runway heading is now 131.30. So I'm thinking if we make the taxiway heading 131.30, there we go. The textures now line up. And I did say that we could change the way that this thing is shaped, and we're going to want to fix those vertices. So we're going to put it back to the arrow tool here, and you'll notice that all the little vertices are now green. So we're going to take this one, we'll hold it down, left click, and we're just going to kind of drag it out here. Then we'll work on this one here because I have to have it perfectly lined up. I am a perfectionist, folks. You should know this. I am a perfectionist. So yeah, doing stuff like this drives me nuts trying to get everything just right. But luckily, look how close we can zoom in here. So I can actually bring it all the way down to like right about there. I want a little bit of runway overlap, but not too much. Alright, so I don't think it's going to be that critical as to where this one is, but I do kind of want to have my lines a little bit parallel. So let's see how much overlap we've got on this side here. Not too much, about that much, whatever that is. So we'll go back down to this side here, and we can see that it does get a little bit fatter down here. So I'm going to want to pull this particular one down to about There, looks good. Yeah. You see how easy this is? Basically, you're just dragging and dropping stuff. That's it. That's it. And it looks like this line appears to be pretty straight, so I've got that right. And this looks like it's perpendicular to that. Actually, no, it does not. I need to fix that. Yeah, see, I told you I'm a perfectionist. You'll be seeing this all day long. Luckily, I'm not going to make this video too long here. I just want to give you the basics, show you what can be done, and then we'll take it from there. So, now that we have New Taxiway down, we're going to change the name of it. So I'm going to put the mouse over to roughly where I'm headed. And I clicked on it with the left click, and we're going to call it Runway 14 Turn Around. Always a good idea to name your stuff, because when you end up with a whole list of stuff on this right hand side here, it can get a little bit confusing as to what is what. You have to physically click everything just to get it to highlight and tell you what it is. Alright, so we have Runway 14 Turnaround done. And we are going to click anywhere on this thing to just get rid of that. So you'll see everything goes back to green, which is its default shape. We can select items by making a box, but I don't need to select anything, and there's nothing to select. So we're going to slide over to this side of the airport here. And we're going to do the same thing that we did on the other side. So back to the taxi tool. And even though my picture is not lined up perfectly, I'm going to make sure that my little turnaround is. So we're going to put one mark there. We're going to zoom out so that way I can see it at a better angle. And we're going to go 1 point there, 1 point there, 1 point there, and close it off. Bam! Okay, now we still want the same exact heading for that texture. So let me go ahead and put that back in. I think it was 1.131.3. Yes, it was. And we're going to change this from concrete to asphalt. Alright, there are no lights along this little taxiway turnaround here, so we don't need to worry about that. Now we are going to make sure that everything looks perfect. So let's go ahead and zoom back in. Put it back to the arrow so that way we can select the individual points. We'll zoom all the way in. Click on you. Pull you down to there. Okay, and we know that we're going to need to move this one slightly to the southeast. So we'll pull on you until that line is just about lined up. Want to make sure we're making a 90-degree angle here. Good thing I passed geometry back in high school, huh? Alright, right there looks good. This point we already know is decent. We only need to fix this one because obviously now it's too fat. So we're going to go ahead and pull you down to right about there. Let's see what that looks like from a distance. There we go. That looks awesome. So the last thing we need to do, I need to go back over to this side and rename it Runway 32 Turnaround. Just like that, folks. Now, as easy as we just did that, that's the same way that I am going to go ahead and do the main parts to the airport. So this little taxiway here, we're going to want to do that along with this little tarmac area. I might have the tarmac area jut out under the buildings because I know that when I place some of these buildings, they're kind of hollow inside and they don't have any floors. So in this particular instance, I will want to make the tarmac the floor, basically. Or the other option I have, because it actually kind of looks like it's made out of concrete, I could just basically copy this shape here. In fact, you know what? Instead of my telling you about it and then doing it afterwards, let's just do it. Taxiway. Now, we have some curves here, but I'm going to show you how to fix that in a second. So, that's our starting point. I want to put 1 point here, and don't worry, I will make that curved eventually. Then we're going to go down here, put a point there. We're going to put a point here. Now you'll notice it's starting to form the shape in the wrong area. We will fix that. We will fix that. We want to make sure this thing is not an inside-out shape. So let's see, we got to go there, then we've got to go there. And we're just basically connecting the dots, folks. That's all we're doing is connecting the dots.
It's like being back in elementary school again. Alright, now I do notice that this particular one has a walkway going across and then there's more asphalt back here. So in this instance, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take it down to here, and then you'll see later I'll have the concrete go over it. Or maybe that's actually the shadow of the building. You know what? That might be the shadow of the building. So forget what I just previously said. We're going to take it right over here. Okay, now this will be a separate taxiway. I just kind of want to have this little taxiway, the hold short line, and the apron. So we're going to go from there to here, and then to here. And you'll notice the shape is starting to fill out the proper direction now. We'll go there, and we'll put the other one underneath the runway there, and that should be it. So bam! We'll connect that just like that. Now we do know that our heading is going to be 131.30, so we might as well put that in now. And we do not want this as concrete. This is asphalt, so there we go. Just like that, we've got that area mapped out. Now, we kind of messed up here. Well, not we, I did. I thought this was asphalt, but this is actually the shadow of the building. So we've got a few extra points here that we don't need. Here's how we fix that. We're going to want to select a point and press delete. Oh, snap, what did I do? I just did the wrong thing, folks. Luckily, Control Z is your friend. All right, let's try that again. We do not have the entire thing selected, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to zoom in. We're going to click that point, just like that, and then press delete. All right, look at that. So much better. And now you've learned a valuable lesson on how to delete stuff and how to move points individually. So we're going to click on this guy here, and we're going to move him up to where the real end of this asphalt area is, which is right about there. Okay, good deal. So you see we have our little tarmac area right there. Now, before I call this video quits, I do want to show you a couple more little tips and tricks. First off, we have a curve here that we want to make curvy. Here's how we're going to do that. We're going to click on this point here. We're going to hold down the Alt key. In this case, I'm using left Alt, but I don't think it matters whether it's left or right. And with the Alt key held down, I'm going to click and drag this particular point. Now, to make it more along the lines of a actual circle here, we're going to want to make sure that we come close to these lines here. So we're kind of making it as perpendicular as we can get it. So I'm going to pull it right out to here. You'll notice that it changes color. What it's doing is it's flipping the shape inside out. We do not want that. So yeah, right there should be good. We'll let everything go. And that actually looks pretty good, except I'm going to need to change this point here because obviously the curve is a little sharper than that. Not a problem. We can do that. Okay, so we have this one selected, and I've let go of everything. I'm going to press Alt, hold it down, and then click on this one, and we're going to need to pull the other direction. So I'm going to wait until the arrow touches that line where the runway is. Okay, right about there. Let's pull it back just a touch and let everything go. So now we just turned that point into a Bezier curve. Pretty good, huh? And now that we've done that, the next thing that we're going to need to do, well, I'm going to need to click on this, and I'm going to need to move it over here somewhat. Now I did notice that this thing is acting up a little bit, so maybe we should pull it back some. There we go, we'll just pull it back. Alright. We can also add a Bezier curve to this side as well, so if I wanted to, I can hold down Alt and then pull on that. And there we go. So we got another Bezier curve there, and we can actually use that to define just how much curvature we've got. So we know that this can pull back a little bit, so let's go ahead and do that real quick. You can actually see the way it's bending the lines right there. So we want to make sure that that line is straight. And we're going to pull this out just a touch. Now I still need to figure out why this thing went inside out, or why it's doing that. It's zooming in, zooming out like that. So we're going to need to come down to here. See if we can't figure that out. Oh, you know what? I think it's flipping like right here. So I'll need to make that a bezier as well. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and pull back. Look at that. Almost totally fixed it. And since we have this line in the texture here, we can actually use that to line it up. So we'll just pull that down there. That way those 2 points are exactly where they need to be. And then you we need to pull down here. I'm going to pull you out a little bit. We're going to make you a bezier curve. Alright, I am going to opt to do it this way, but you'll see in a moment how that will be affected by what I'm doing here. There we go. And that's it. That's literally all I need to do. Now if I wanted to just move one of these things by themselves, I can hold down Alt again and then just pick one of those little arrows. So since we know this is going to go underneath our runway, I can just pull that all the way to there. And if we wanted to, we can do the same thing with the other side. So that way we can make the other side a little more curvy. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. It just has to look good, at least for my sake. So I think that will do the trick right there. And then the last thing that I'm going to want to do here, you see that little hold short line? I'm going to show you how to make one. Alright, now the hold short lines are going to be slightly different. We are going to want taxiway markings. Actually, let me just check that for sure. Yeah, I believe that's what I used, was taxiway markings. We can set the properties of it different ways. Runway hold is what I'm selecting. You cannot see that right now, however, you will momentarily. So we're going to zoom into here. I have it set for runway hold short. And I'm going to start from here. And I'm going to literally go across the road to here. That's basically it. Now, since this one doesn't get connected to the other side, you can press enter and it'll just automatically make it what it needs to be. So we have the line attributes to the right here. It's a double solid line, and then it's the traditional dashed line that you're used to seeing. And as far as lights, it does say that this thing has lights on there. However, I am not 100% certain that this airport even has lights, so I'm going to go ahead and take them out for the time being. And now that we have that set up, we can just make sure that everything is lined up properly. You see when it zooms out, it actually looks more like what it should look like. And that is not bad for eyeballing it. Okay, so let's just slightly move it so that everything is on top of each other. So we've got that there. And then we've got that there. Alright, so all of a sudden, we've got a hold short line right there. And it looks like it's crooked, so I'm going to need to fix that. I'm eyeballing it here. Yep, there we go. Okay, that works. Now eventually what I'll do is I'll put in the concrete and the buildings and all of that stuff, but we'll save that for another video. I'll do like a finishing touches video where I'm putting in all the last pieces. I'll show you real quick how the rest of that stuff works. This is the beacon here. We're going to move that over here because I believe that's where it is in real life, and then we're going to put a little building next to it. But this at least gives you an idea of how you're going to make an airport in X-Plane. And if we want to, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the overlays that we have currently, and that way you'll see what the airport itself looks like. That's our handiwork right there. So now that we've got that the way that we want it, we can essentially save it, and we can also validate it to make sure that there are no errors. That is a really important step. And the beep means your layout is valid, no problems were found. Perfect. And then the last thing you're going to want to do is put the airport into X-Plane. To do that, you're going to want to open up File and go to Export Scenery Pack, or Control B is the shortcut. And that's it. That's all we need to do. It's now in X-Plane. So how about we fire up X-Plane? We left our helicopter on a runway. Let's see if we can see the little changes that we've made so far. And then I'll call this video done. Okay, and we are back in X-Plane in our helicopter. And it appears the rotor is moving, so let me go ahead and turn the rotor brake on. Could be just the wind. There's a slight breeze out there. And it is modeling real world weather, so the clouds that we had earlier are now gone. This is Pittsburgh. If you wait long enough, weather will change. All right, let's go to free camera, which the default key for that is C. And we're just going to pull ourselves up so that way we can take a closer look at our handiwork. So there we go. We got the little runway turnaround there. Let me head over to it. Oh, this is much faster. All right, there we go. Make sure that's all lined up. We've got the edge lights on the runway here, which we did confirm based on the picture that it does in fact have edge lights. And you can see my perfectionism pays off. Look at that line. That is perfect. That is perfect. And we'll head over to the other side here. We've got the windsock there. I'll need to move that to on top of the building. This road is obviously in the wrong spot because if you remember our picture, it's supposed to be further back. So more than likely when I do the boundary for the airport, this road's going to go bye-bye. So unfortunately those houses will be gone. The cars coming along the way will be gone. All of that will be sadly gone. But you see our little hold short line here came out perfectly. The way that it looks in WED is obviously different from the way that it actually generates in X-Plane, but as you can see, this is what it's supposed to look like. So eventually we'll need to put like the taxiway markings with little curved lines going out to the runway. And let's see what the other side looks like. Again, we've got some roads that really aren't working for me, so we'll have to fix that. We'll make sure that this looks kosher. Yep, line is lined up. The only thing that looks a little bit off is if you follow this line and follow the line down here, it's not quite where it should be. So I will need to fix that, but I will do that off camera. I won't subject you to all of that. Suffice to say, that is how easy you can start building an airport in X-Plane. So the next time you see me, I will have a whole heck of a lot more of this thing built. I'll show you how to put down some objects like the hangars and so on and so forth. But we'll save that for the next time. So thank you as always for watching. This is BelGeode playing X-Plane 10.45. And don't forget to like the video if you learned something. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. I will talk at you all later. Ciao!